Good morning, YouTube, BookTube. This is Johnny. Thought I'd make a video because it's a Monday. You could do a Monday reads. I don't think I've done any reading updates lately. What I've been reading or trying to read or attempting to read as I sit here in the hermit hut. Today is March the 10th, 2025. It's 10:32 in the morning. Writing in my paper diary. I'm on page 238 and reading the book of Psalms with let me see here. I am trying to finish I read this morning Denis, the Carthusian, the commentary on the Davidic Psalms, volume 4, Psalm 76 to 100. And this morning I read on Psalm 97 and 98 until I was falling asleep. This morning I had to get up at 5:30 to go get my blood drawn at 6 o'clock. The blood lab is just 5 minutes from where we live. So I got up really early and got my blood drawn and came home. I was home by 6:20 and my wife was making a quiche because this morning she's having a Bible study with some friends of hers and they have breakfast and they talk. So I was reading this morning. I want to finish volume 4 because I told you I want to read volume 5, which I just came out. So I want to keep going through these. This is volume 5, and I've read volumes 1, 2, 3. Want to finish 4, and then I can read volume 5. This is translated out of the Latin by Andrew M. Greenwell. So yeah. So as far as Monday reads, I have to be completely honest in my videos, which I always try to do. I don't try to put on airs or be something that I'm not. What you see is what I am. I get to a place sometimes where I'm overwhelmed. I mean, I can't digest anything. So, like yesterday, I found myself sitting for hours in my living room chair, was sitting here in the dining room, just trying to process existence. And but I still read. It's just what I do. But my reading kind of slows down somewhat. I try to read things that are more contemplative, more reflective. That's why I've been reading Denis, the Carthusians. If you can't go wrong when you're just in a state where you can't delve into something really heavy intellectually, or your mind is kind of needs a rest. It's good to read the Psalms. I didn't really get into the Psalms, to be honest, until when I came into the Reformed faith, into Calvinism. We went to churches, Dutch Reformed churches, where people who were Dutch Reformed who sang the Psalter, sang Psalms, and also the ministers would preach to the Psalms. And many years ago, when I lived in California, I went to an Orthodox Presbyterian church in Berkeley. And I do remember the minister there, Reverend Richard Lewis. He would preach to a psalm. He would preach a psalm. And I didn't really pay attention to the Psalms until I started going to Reformed churches and that sang the Psalms. Now, not every church that's Reformed or Calvinistic sings the Psalms, but the point is, when we came here to Holland, Michigan, and we couldn't find a church, my wife and I, for our family, eventually we joined a group of 10 families, and we started a church called Messiah Independent Reformed Church out in Overijssel. And one of the things that we all wanted as a church is to sing the Psalms, so psalm singing. So we sang the Psalms, and so I really got into the Psalms, and I really got more into the Psalms, to be honest, after reading Denis and the Carthusian. That's what really opened up the Psalms to me, was reading those first now 4 volumes and seeing the how they pertain to my own spiritual life, or the life of the church, or the life of the Christian. Not only that, but you look at the Psalms historically. Of course, they're written by King David, the Davidic Psalms, which is David. And so I've really been appreciate reading Denis and the Carthusian, because he really opened up the Psalms to me. For many years, even when we were at Overijssel, and we left that church 20 years ago, that I now can really appreciate them more than I did way back then. They speak to me more now than because I was always, I always looked at the Psalms, just what did they say to Israel, to the nation Israel, to the Jewish people. And I didn't always see how the Psalms speak to me, the spiritual life, the life of a Christian, and then how the Psalms are also biographical of the life of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. So, so it's been really, I really appreciate Denis, because he really helped me understand the Psalms. Because I started reading, I think I started reading Denis in 4 or 5 years ago. So I was reading that this morning, and I was reading Sacred Meditations by Johann and Gerhard. Been reading that this morning on a serious preparation for the Holy Supper. See, these are kind of things I can read that are contemplative. I can meditate. I can read something like this, and then I can just sit here and just look out the windows around our first floor of our house. It's a sunny day. It's kind of warm out. And it's quiet except for the noise in my ear. You know, I have tinnitus in my ear, and so I'm always hearing the noise in my ear. And I can just sit here, read a little something, and just, read a psalm, and just sit here and kind of let my mind go in low gear. I'm also reading for meditations on the life and passion of Christ by John Tauler. I've been reading this because we had Ash Wednesday last Wednesday was Ash Wednesday, and so we're leading up to the Passion of Christ, the death of Christ, which we call Easter, the resurrection of Christ. The next chapter in here on Sacred Meditations is on the Ascension of Christ. So, and I was reading, but not lately, last couple of days, because my mind's tired, but I was reading the commentary on the Apostle Paul, Epistle to the Philippians by Gerhard Zanchi. So I was reading that. I tried to read it the other day, and it was too mental. I couldn't get my head around it. And I was reading not last couple of days, Confession of Christian Religion by Zanchi. And I'm trying to finish Irresistible Beauty, Beholding the Triune Glory in the Face of Jesus Christ by Samuel G. Parkison. I want to finish this because I got his new book just the other day, well, last week, The Unvarnished Jesus, The Beauty of Christ and His Ugly Rivals by Samuel G. Parkison. These kind of books that you can read and meditate on. This is a little bit more heavy because it was his doctorate dissertation. So it's kind of theological in certain places. But I only have maybe 10 pages to read left in this. And then I plan to read his newest book, The Unvarnished Jesus, The Beauty of Christ and His Ugly Rivals. So that's what I kind of read in the mornings. Last couple of mornings, like I told you, I've been kind of out of it. This morning I got up at 5:30. I'm kind of sleepy. It's going on 11 o'clock in late morning. Around noon I get into my lull. I'll probably go sit in the living room and I'll just kind of doze. Write in my paper diary. Now, as far as what I've been trying to read outside of Christian reading, I know I try to read nonfiction in the afternoons and in the evenings I switch over to fiction. Yesterday I did get around to reading some more of Following Coliban, A Pilgrim's 4,000-Mile Quest for Monks, Meaning and the Meaning of Monks by Johann M. Swartz. So I did read this yet last night because I'm almost done with it. I have maybe 30 pages left. It's his pilgrimage. You have to. I watched his YouTube channel. He's Austrian Roman Catholic or a Catholic monk, and this is his pilgrimage. So it's just basically every day he hikes a certain or walks a certain distance and what he sees around him there in France. First he starts out in, I think, in Scotland or Ireland, and then as he's hiking or taking this pilgrimage, he talks about all the different religious sites, the churches, the monastic orders and convents and cathedral churches there in France, and he winds up in the Italian Alps where he lives. Half the year he has a hermitage up in the Italian Alps, and I used to watch his YouTube channel. He's taking a year off, so he's not making any videos, but I used to watch him. I was reading, and this is not too heavy to read in the afternoons, is Eating Dirt, Deep Forest, Big Timber, and the Life of the Tree Planting Tribe by Charlotte Gill. This is this is like a memoir of a woman who joined a group of people up in Vancouver Island who plant trees. It's like a business. They hire people after the lumber company cuts down trees, whole areas, people go in, are hired to plant trees, and that's what it's about that whole experience. She goes into the history of trees and the importance of trees and forests and all kinds of interesting things. So I haven't been reading the last couple of days, but I told you I'm kind of mentally tired. But if I want something that's not so taxing on my mind, I read this. Eating Dirt. I do enjoy reading it. Also, I was reading at night I got maybe, I got about 20 pages left in the novel, The Incarnations by Susan Barker. Yeah, I'm almost done with this. I couldn't read it the last couple of nights, but I got 2 chapters left and I'm almost finished with this. As far as nonfiction, I was reading last week Red's in McCarthyism, the 20th Century America by Ted Morgan. I've read about 130 pages in this. Yeah, I read this. Also, I've been reading a book I got in the mail a week ago, Red List, M15 and British Intellectuals in the 20th Century by David Schott. So I've been reading this along with Reds in the afternoons. It deals with the same subject. The Red List is the M15 and the secret intelligence of Great Britain keeping files on intellectuals that they considered to be subversives or radicals or communists, and how they tracked them and how they kept files on them, these intellectuals. You see George Orwell up there and these others I don't recognize, but I've been reading this in the afternoons. Once again, I read this kind of, I'll read it and then I'll put it down and I'll just wander in my brain. I've also been reading for nonfiction, Inventing Eastern Europe, A Map of Civilization, The Mind of the Enlightenment by Leverbook. This is not really hard to read. It's more, he quotes from 18th century Europeans from France or who traveled in Eastern Europe and how they looked at Eastern Europe and how they thought that they were barbarians, whereas the French and the English were civilized, something like that. But it's kind of interesting. So I've been reading this. As far as fiction, I've been reading Ingenious Gentleman and the Poet Federico Garcia Lorca Ascends to Hell by Carlos Rojas. I read a novel by Carlos Rojas last year, and I can't remember what the title was, if it's here. But I've been reading this off and on in the evenings. Sometimes in late afternoons I'll read it. Translated by Edith Grossman. And yeah, I've been reading that. Yeah, I read another novel of his last year. This is okay. This one I got in the mail last week, and I'm finding it very difficult to read. This is San Camilo, 1936. Camilo Jose Cela, translated by John H.R. Polt. Yeah, I'm finding this hard to read. A person who follows me in LiveJournal who lives in Spain, up in it's not Spain, I can't remember right now, but anyway, he mentioned him in our going back and forth in writing, and so I ordered it used, but I'm finding it difficult to read because there's a lot of reference to people and places that I don't know Spanish, and I can't connect to the people that he writes about. This came out, when was it first published? I think it was in the 30s it came out. I'm not really sure. it was translated in 1991. Maybe it came out in 1991. No, it says 1969. So anyway, I'm finding it kind of difficult reading. I haven't really completely DNF'd it, but I'm finding it difficult to read because I can't relate to all the Spanish people. It's like 200 characters. All these places I just can't connect to. But so I was reading this. And last of all, I have been reading Invictium by Michael Bronski. This, what I do, like I said, in the evenings around 7 o'clock, I'll sit down here in the dining room and I'll read at least 10 pages. And so I've read 337 pages, and it's 1,190 pages. So I have been plowing through this. I do plan to keep reading it this week, and I'll keep reading it. So I've been reading this in the evenings before I go to downstairs in the lower level. I don't read this before I go to bed. I read it like in the 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Usually I read something more like this before I go to bed, or something like this. Or I'll just look stuff on the internet, look at YouTube or BookTube before I go to bed. So this is my Monday reads. This is a reading update. I got a book coming in the Amazon delivering today, a book. But like I said, I'm kind of out of it. I'm kind of mentally exhausted. I'm just kind of weary. So I try to read things that are more contemplative. Meditations on the Life and Passion of Christ by John Tauler. Sacred Meditations by Gerhard. Reading the Psalms, Denis the Carthusian. Reading, want to get into Unvarished Jesus and Irresistible Beauty. The Beholding the Triune Glory in the Face of Jesus Christ by Samuel G. Parkison. And so, but a lot of times I just find myself just sitting here, gazing off into nothing. I find my mind, as I get older, going back in the past. I don't know why. Sometimes I can go for long periods of time or weeks where I don't think about the past when I was young. And then all of a sudden these thoughts come to my mind, where memories, I don't know where they come from. All of a sudden they just come out of the mist. So yeah, that's my reading life here in Holland, Michigan. It's sunny out. It's kind of warm out. And so we're getting towards spring. And I just try to live a life of prayer, a life of devotion, seeking those things that are above. Yeah, I was just reading that here, where he says, he was writing, what was that? Where is it? I don't see it now. What did he say? He said about the ascension of, he says, well, I won't read it, but because it's going on 24 minutes. Anyway, good book to read for meditation in the mornings. So I'll sign off. I do thank you for subscribing. Thank you for putting likes. Thank you for your comments, and just hope you have a good new reading week, that you're all doing well, and pray may the Lord bless. Until next time, bye.